There we go. Whew. All right. Hey, good evening, everyone. Dave Wilson of the Ring of Hire Show. Welcome, LinkedIn. Hey, listen, tonight we got a great show. We got Mr. Joel Villa up in the right-hand corner. Got Mr. Greg Coolbaugh down there, people helping people. Tonight we're going to be talking about a couple different subjects between second chances, interview processes, and different things for leadership. So everybody knows the drill. Be right back after this video. And hey, guys, we're on Twitter for the first time tonight. So maybe from Twitter out there, if anybody is watching, at least one, I'll be happy if we get one person. All right. Be right back. Right.
All right. Love that.
You know what? I still love it. I don't care how many times I play that thing, man. I just stare at it. I'm like, bam, bam, bam. Yeah, we'll see if Twitter likes it tonight. So one person tonight on Twitter. That's all I need to say is hello. So we'll see if out of those 3,000. I've never checked Twitter. I didn't know I could do this on here. I didn't know.
It's amazing. I love it.
So I guess with Eli and everybody like that, Elon Musk, all them, so we're on there tonight. We'll see if we can, as Greg says, people helping people. Hey, listen, guys, tonight we're going to a little bit more of a deep dive, but we always talk about leadership and different things. And but the hiring process, we're going to try to gear it towards that. Joel, I know you wanted to bring up tonight, first one, chance or no chance. The topic of what makes us want to give someone a chance versus when we know deep down they aren't right fit for the job.
Right. And I think it's such an important aspect, whether you're the interviewer or the interviewee. When you're going into these different places, you're looking for different jobs, like what's that job that's going to fit you? And when you're the interviewer and providing the interviews, like how do you know when to take that chance with that person? What is it that makes you want to hire that person on board? And say they give you a sob story, the resume is not that great, but they interview really well. Do you want to give them a chance? Or do you like, hey, look, obviously your attention to detail is not that great. Where do you draw that line at?
Are you looking at transferable skills or looking at different things or like job qualifications or
all the things? You can look at all the different, you got to measure it up and figure out where you want to do. Where do you want to take that chance at with a few people?
My thing I had was, I know what you're, I feel that because I've had some people like, all right, how am I going to sell this person? They don't know. They haven't listened to us interviewing them. So when you're interviewing them, I'm always like, all right, how to upsell the person, like, all right, you might not have all the qualifications, but you might have a couple that maybe, but I have done that. Have you done that, Greg, in the past, given that chance or?
It depends. Yeah. Like I know, like we talked about last time when I was on, to me personally, the interview process is a conversation, right? If you're the interviewer, you're feeling out the interviewee. If you're the interviewee, you're feeling out the interviewer. And it's just a conversation and you're getting a feel both ways if it's a good fit to move forward. And for me, assuming it's a place that the background check doesn't hold you up, right? Like there's some things that's just unfortunately, it's a hard no and there's nothing you can do. But if you're a place where you're able to give that person a second chance and it's up to you in the hot seat, I think if you're having a good conversation with that person and they can show you, hey, yeah, maybe I used to be an alcoholic or I went to jail for XYZ, whatever the thing is, if they're showing you and you can see like, hey, I've done these things to try to better my life. I'm on a path to, get my life on track and go in the right direction. Maybe it depends what their why is. What's their why? Why are they doing this? Why are they trying to better their life? If you can feel the desperation and the passion in their voice and they're giving you a sense of integrity, like, yeah, I'm going to give them a second chance because I think everyone deserves a second chance. But if they're, Joe Schmo that just walked in and they got no passion and they're not excited about it, they don't have a good story. They're 5 seconds out of prison
over
and don't care if they go back, probably not. I think it kind of is a case by case thing for me.
I think you gotta weigh it out. Like you said, I always try to say, like, all right, the positive pros and cons, if you want to say, but then that chance of selling it, the upsell of telling the person why do I want to move that person forward, when I think, Joel, what you're saying too is when your managers might not agree.
Yep, exactly. So another thing is too, we've some of the people that I just in my line of work recently, we brought a few people on. They worked for a day and left. They never came back in, never called off or anything. They just didn't show back up, and they did it just so they can keep getting their benefits. But like I said, they interviewed well. Their resume was good. So at that point, where do you give them that chance? Where do you look for?
Especially if they're like I always say, like if somebody's 60, my model is almost like a 60%. If you're, that's just me. If like 60% qualified, I'll take that chance at least to get the person moved to the next phase. Because if I'm not the decision maker, I think that's where it comes down to where, like, all right, Greg, why'd you send me this person? What are you thinking? So you're going to find yourself, Greg, trying to explain to your boss why you're bringing this person forward.
Yeah, I think some of it's a feeling, right? And what's their story? What's their why? I wrote down here. I really like the book, The Power of One More by Ed Milet.
Yeah, you were talking about that for the show.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal book. Anyone listening, if you haven't read it or listened to it, I like to listen to my books. I would highly encourage you to do it. You won't regret it. I'm going to do it again because he talks really fast and everything he says is on point. But basically, in the beginning of the story, he tells his story. And part of his story was his dad was a recovering alcoholic. And he'd go to rehab and he'd come back and nothing would change. And he'd go to rehab again. And it was kind of like this lather, rinse, repeat kind of thing. And, he looked at him and he said, Eddie, when I come back from rehab this time, it's going to be different. And he said, I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, how do I know? How do you know it's going to be different this time? And he said, because this is my last chance. This is my one more chance before I lose you and lose my family. So really short speech, but he knew, wow, something's different in my dad this time. And he came back and everything did change. And he knew that was his one more, right? His last chance. So what's your story? Is this your last chance? Do you have a story? Do you have some passion? Do you have a why? Is this your last shot at life? If you can kind of feel that from someone, and the conversation I feel will dictate. Yeah, give them a shot.
You type that book name into the comments, Greg? Are you able to type in the comments if you do? That way we know the name of it. If anybody wants to read that book, you can type it in there. But there again, Joel, what he's saying there is the why. Listen, when you're in that interview and you're talking to that person, it's really an inspiration, kind of like when you were saying that, you can relate to it. I think because everybody knows somebody that's had problems or, issues, or like you said, why is he in it? If the person's not motivated when they're sitting there talking to you, I think you can get that feeling again. How do you get past that point and convince your boss the next part up to make you feel the same way?
Yeah, exactly.
Besides having that person in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes down to, the person who's doing everybody who's listening in, if you're trying to go for interviews and you're trying to get that one job, you bring that story, tell them the why, make that person who's doing the interview, feel you, don't go in there like, hey, what's your story? Oh, I really don't have one. I'm 24, just looking for a job. No, you have a story. You got to tell that story. You have to go out there. And if you get to our age, at our age, Dave, you and I, even Greg too, we have stories now.
All my stories, I tell you all the time. It's like I've been there, done it, and I'm just like, I'm tired of saying that.
T-shirt and everything.
Yeah, I know what I would like to move people forward, because let's face it, like we said, we know somebody. It really comes down to. I like how you guys say the story. It's a story.
You got to put that story out there
to pick that up. Greg, I know you said before the show we were going to bring up the subject, and this one's dear to me, is second chances for employment. Why is that special to you, Greg? Why?
I don't have a real special story. I just feel in general, in any scenario, everyone deserves at least a second chance if you're putting your best foot forward. I'm a believer in God, and I believe in the Bible. It says all shall fall short of the glory of God. In other words, we all make mistakes. We don't have to be perfect. Everyone's going to screw up. I'm far from perfect. I mean, I make mistakes every single day, and I own them and I learn from them. It's like a baby learning to walk. You fall over and over and over again, and you keep going. But I believe in multiple chances if you're putting your best foot forward. And if you're making the effort and you're trying, I believe keep going. And that's got to come within you. Keep trying to make it happen for yourself, even if people tell you no. If you've got that determination, you got that dog in you. Steve Harvey talks about you got to have some dog in you. And I think
because if they're constantly getting that no, rejection after rejection after rejection, that's got to be hard. Again, Joel, that comes right back to what you were talking about there. It's the same thing. Second chances. How do you listen? A lot of the bigger companies, let's face it, you have background checks. They're there for a reason. All right. I think they're to protect both people.
Right.
I wish companies would back off just a little bit. I wish they would and tag into that work part. I understand. I guess sometimes I understand why. Like you know what could happen in your mind. All right, this person, like I told you, my brother, you've been in prison for 15, 16 years. Greg, if I'm coming and I'm interviewing for you at an entry-level job even or something, I think it comes down to that too, of if I say I was in prison for 10 years, your first instinct, Greg, are you going to say, okay, what goes through your mind?
I'm going to say, if it's you, I'm going to say, well, tell me about that, Dave. And I'm going to let you tell me your story. And if your story looks something like, yeah, I did this thing, and you don't seem like you have any remorse about it, and you're like, yeah, I just need a job. PO told me I got to have a job.
You said it right there.
So you're here because you have to be, not because you want to be. If you're like, man, I made a big mistake, and I wish I could take it back. I was young and dumb, and I did this thing, and there's not a day that goes by I don't think about it. But now I'm out, and I have a second chance, Greg. I'm with my family again, and I can't screw this up. That's a whole different 30 seconds. And I'm like, wow, I want to give you a shot. Let's go. I'm hiring on personality like we talked about last time. And you just gave me a story and a reason to believe in you. So let's go.
How do you judge that, Joel? How would you look at it if I said that to you?
I'll look at it the exact same way. The exact same way Greg said. I completely agree with that. You come in there, and if you have remorse about this, if you have a background that's something that caused you, like, look, I did this. It was a mistake. I didn't mean to do that. Yeah. Okay, cool. Come on back. And what you were saying too, Dave, when it comes to background checks, some companies, there's a reason why they do have background checks, either be it a government related position or, government mandated. But there's a lot of jobs that don't require background checks. And those companies that do those anyways, it's like, do you really need to do that? Do you really need to waste that time and resources for that? Not really.
Would you tell the candidate to keep something like that to yourself when you hire somebody on?
If you're not doing a background check, then I wouldn't bring it up unless it was absolutely necessary or anything like that. It's just in my opinion. But if somebody comes in and they're completely open, one, if they come to me and they tell me about that, like on just as soon as we start the interview process, or we get into that kind of storyline, we're developing, communication, we're having a good conversation, and they go into that. And I'm like, hey, at least you're honest. You have integrity and you're owning up to it.
Yeah, I think they got to own it. If you're making excuses, then you're not remorseful. You didn't learn from it. We all make mistakes. There's no judgment. But if you can't own what you did, then you got to go back to square one. If you're not ready to own it, and you're just excusing it away. I don't know how to move forward.
We have a great kind of like, even though it's federal and all the other stuff, we have a group of rules, if you're a background check, what you can pass, but then we also can adjudicate them, certain ones like a lesser, you can look at it and then it's up to the company to decide, well, okay, no or yes, but that doesn't automatically fail you for the background check, because like you said, I think it comes down to what happened. But wow, I like how you said that, Greg. It's a story again. But how do you judge that for bias, for being biased and all that, you say, boom. But I know what you're saying, because I've seen those guys almost begging, really, sir, I've changed my life. I'm really just looking for hard. And Joel, like when you say, they're not going to get hired. You just know it, but you don't, it's hard to tell that person.
It is. It really is. So at that time, that's why I give it to the HR lady. I'm like, hey, you call them, tell them no.
Yeah, because it's a person's life. You're human. Yeah. I mean, come on, you're freaking human. But at the same time, I think that person knows. I'm sure this isn't going to be their first no, Greg. I would say, you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think when I was still in corporate America, and I was doing interviews hand over foot everywhere. A lot of times. I guess you could take this two different ways, but sometimes I wouldn't call them back to tell them no. We just wouldn't call them back and tell them they were hired, because then they didn't have all these no's.
Right.
It's kind of like, okay, well, the first one that gives me a yes, that's where I'm going to go. Is that way it's not like we're really shutting the door maybe you apply again and we reopen the door, we reintroduce a conversation later. But a lot of times if I couldn't hire someone, there was times where I was like, I can't hire this person. There's no way they're going to pass the background check. There's been situations I've interviewed people and I'm like, there's no way I could even try to push you through. And I wouldn't call them back, and not to discourage them, but one more no might just be all somebody needs to make another mistake.
Yeah, and they made a new law. They made a new law now to where you have to, in different states, when someone fails a background check, a letter gets sent out.
Yeah.
And that's only fair. I think that I like that idea. I know companies, it's an expense, from a mail-in expense to, just to be able to notify employees and make sure you get that out to them. But it's an expense that I think it protects both of you. It gives that person, okay, I might not have to call them, but they're going to get a letter, and maybe they're used to a letter. I understand what you're saying, Greg, because I've been on that phone. I've been on that phone and have to say, listen. But, I always just try to be human about it. You can't just, I think the way you bring the no to them, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've had that conversation too, because sometimes they do call, and if they call, I say, hey, look, I'm not able to bring you on board at this time because of X, Y, Z. I'd love to continue the conversation. Maybe you give them some other suggestions of other places they can work. I always had a list of places that would accept someone in my office. I had a list of places, that would accept you with a background check. And I'd say, hey, check out, here's a list. I can email it to you or text it to you or whatever. Here's some places that your background check might not hold you up. Or I would tell them, hey, later down the road, as time passes, I'd love to reopen the door to this. We had a great conversation and kind of breathe some belief into them. So, yeah, I know that was kind of a controversial answer. I do see both. Again, I'm very case by case. So I think there's times for both. Personally, that's my belief. But
Joel?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I believe I have to disagree with the whole. Yeah, what Greg was saying was, not calling anybody back. I prefer to get the call back when I was job seeking and being the hiring manager too. I like to give that person and that no, Greg could be completely correct on that. You could be that no, which puts them over the edge. But at the same time, if I'm a job seeker, I'm trying to find a job, I don't want to keep my hopes up for that one job, even though they said no, and not hear anything back.
Right.
I want to hear that no, if I know I don't have it, so I can know I need to keep looking elsewhere.
Sometimes that can be an extension of the interview process too. Sometimes if they call you back and they call me back 5 times, like, hey, I always told people, call in and say, I just wanted to check the status of my application. That also builds their story. Oh, this person really wants to be here. That might change my decision as well. If I'm on the fence, obviously it can't make it from a hard no to a yes, but if you're on the fence with someone and they're calling me on every couple of days, I'm like, wow, this job's really important to this person. Maybe we do give them a shot.
Give them a shot. Wow, we got Rob in the house.
Rob, what's up, man?
There he is. Rob's in the house. Rob, let us know if you got the interview and you got the job. I know Rob's going through it right now. He's looking, but I think he has one lined up right now. That reminds me of a story real quick. I had a guy doing a job fair, and he's actually going to a trade school, to be HVAC. And he's almost graduated, but yet he was applying for a lot of different jobs because he said he knew that he was going to have a hard time getting one. And, it's just like the HIPAA law. Like you don't listen, when somebody comes in, that's confidential. Yep. You read that background check. You can't go out to people and say, oh, we didn't hire him because of this, because of that. You can't do that. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's you. Well, no, you can't do that in a company. I would never do that. No, I would never do that because it's nobody's business what this person didn't get hired for. My point was he was doing everything right, man. He knew, I saw what he was there for. And I'm like, okay, but I did what Greg did. I knew 2 companies that might hire him. And it's okay to say that to somebody. I think it's great that you could say, hey, listen, Joel, we can't hire you here, but listen, over here, this company will hire you.
Mm-hmm. So giving them value.
Yeah.
People helping people.
Yeah. Point them in the right direction. Like, here you go.
And you're helping them out. The next part on the interview process, and I wanted to talk to you about is, I'm going to bring this one up right here, is not interviewing, the work ethic. I know, Greg, we were talking about work ethic. The word ethic and its impact on personal and professional lives. Joe, how do you think you show ethic? How do you, in an interview process or anything, how would you present that? Besides, I know it says here about defining your work ethic as values. I like it. Values, attitudes, principles. I like that. Principles that drive an individual's approach to work.
Yeah. So during the interview process, if you want to show somebody you have a good work ethic, you have to use those kind of keywords to show the interviewer that, hey, I have, work ethic. If you ever get asked a question, give me tell me a story about one time you really showed a lot of work ethic. That can be construed. They can do a lot of stuff. It really doesn't. If you go up and tell somebody, you get to ask a question, hey, tell me about your work ethic. Oh man, it's really great. That's not really good. You know what I mean? You have to actually have those key words in there, because I've had a lot of interviews. I'm like, hey man, tell me about your work ethic. How good is that? And they're like, oh man, it's great. Okay, what else? It's great. Like, okay, that doesn't help me out, man. Not doing anything for you.
It doesn't help.
Yeah, but if you're doing anything else, if you want to say, like, look, I have a high value. I believe in getting the work done first, the right way, as quickly as possible. I believe in working until the minute bell closes, or if you let me keep working, I will keep working to make sure that job gets done for you guys.
Greg, what do you think about that? I mean,
I think it's all about asking good questions. Like Joel said, hey, do you work hard? Tell me about your work ethic. Oh yeah, I work hard. I work real hard. I work hard, David. Trust me, believe me. I would say a simple question like, tell me about a time that you were told your work ethic wasn't where it needed to be, or tell me a time you were told at work you needed to pick it up, or if they haven't worked much, tell me about a time in school where you were told you needed to work a little harder. How'd you handle that? What that look like for you?
Yep.
Tell me the story. Well, one time I knew I should have been doing better, and someone sat me down, and I was like, man, I just didn't realize it, and I picked up and I got promoted. Okay, cool. They told me everything I need to know about their work ethic. They got promoted. They handled the coaching well. They moved on.
Words.
I asked them a question. They told me a story. Like you said, Joel, you can't just ask somebody what their work ethic's like. Tell me a story.
Yeah, I'd have a hard time. I'd have it right off the bat. Can you imagine an interview process if you're just asked that? People might think, if anybody's listening right now, like, what would you say right away? Because you say, I'd be, oh yeah, I'm a hard worker. Okay, but when you bring in those words, here's a couple other ones I like. The traits like dedication, discipline, reliability, commitment, and strong ethic is a foundation for success and personal growth. So personal growth. So those
a good one.
Those are the words I think that I would be listening for. Like, okay, they've hit 2 out of 3. You know what I mean? And I think that's where you can come by. And when somebody starts talking about, Greg, about their families and growing up, that you can really dig into that a little bit. Yeah,
I just think it's all the questions you ask. Tell me about what do you feel is your greatest accomplishment in life? I love asking people that. Sometimes they tell me being a parent or graduating high school, whatever it may be. There's no right or wrong answer. Whatever you feel is a great accomplishment in your life.
Yeah, somebody has to have a story. I hate getting those interviewees in, and you ask them, hey, what's your greatest accomplishment? I made it here.
I know.
Next.
Yeah.
You got to prepare for those interview questions.
Yeah,
you really do. You got to have them in your back belt. Like, okay, I got that. I can say that. Rob had a question. If you guys want to answer, how long should give a company to respond back? Do you talk HR or the hiring manager?
I think he says how long should I give a company?
Should it take? Probably. I think it's how long should it take for a company to get back to you?
Yeah, I say 2 or 3 days. I mean, usually there's at least some level of a panel of people who have to make the decision. If it's just you probably made your decision up. At least for me, I decided whether I'm going to hire them before they leave the interview, right? So I'm going to say, hey, I got a few other people I got to talk to. We're looking at a few other candidates. You shuffle through your papers. I got a few other people I got to talk to today. Whatever. Emotions, but I think it's promising if they call you back the first day. If you don't hear anything back within 3 business days max, that might be a bad sign. Maybe you're getting stiffed by old Greg. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But maybe you call in and give the old question. Hey, just really excited to hear about the status of my interview.
Yeah, and
2-3 days at the max.
Rob, sorry. No, Rob, we weren't. You don't be sorry about that. Sorry. But I agree. I think it comes down to like what type of job you're looking for too.
Mm-hmm.
If it comes down to like you're in a panel, people, middle management up, they do have. It's a long process. I really wish it wasn't.
It is.
I wish it would cut down. I like what you said, Greg, because a lot of people know whether you like that person within that first interview. You'll have your ones that you'll be like your maybes, kind of yes, and your no's. But I think that going to the next level, if you're saying that we're going to bring you in for a face-to-face, or something like that. I really think, okay, I'm saving a document in front of me for some reason. I think that you could talk to your hiring managers in 3 days, 4 or 5 days,
Yeah. Usually it takes about a week for us because I'll have about 50 some interviews I have to do, knock those out within a week, and I have to go through, sit down with the boss, figure out who we're going to hire, what the rate's going to be, and look at it and go through paperwork. Sometimes it can take up to 2 weeks, depending on how many people that they're trying to hire. We were hiring about 5 people, and I did 50, no, not 50, about 45 interviews for 5 people.
Yes. That's
yeah. It took us 2 weeks, and then some of the people that we really wanted to bring on already found something else, and I was like, "Oh, sad."
It depends on the process too. Like for me, like my wife and I have our own business, so if we're doing a Zoom interview, we call that a face-to-face because a lot of times we can just do Zoom, right? If I'm on Zoom with you, I've handpicked you from being out in public somewhere. I've had a conversation with you, and I'm already interested in potentially bringing you on board. And if I've asked you, if I've already met you and I like something about you, and I've asked you, hey, you're over 18, you can pass a background check, and you tell me, yes, I'm good on those things. And I already pretty well know that our face-to-face is going to go well. And when we get on the face-to-face, I'm ready to move forward and give you a shot, give you a jersey and see if you're ready to play. So, because we are the decision makers at this point. But again, it's a little different because I'm kind of out and about talking to people and having sort of a pre-interview just by having a conversation. So when I get to my personal hiring process, not, a lot of times I talk about the hiring process when I was in corporate America, but the way I do it now is it's kind of a hybrid, a lot different, but I make the decision right away. Look, do we
that's the way I am. I don't sit on it. I'd rather just make the decision. Just, you're never going to know. Sometimes you get fooled. You'll be like, damn it, what the hell happened? I missed the red flags on this one. Woo!
Yeah.
First, second day, they're calling off, and you're like, what the heck did I just do? I swear to God, I would say back in the day, but when it was a union environment too, man, you had 90 days. And if those 90 days, that company, when we were salary, we made those choices. We said, you better be sure you want that person before they come in the union, because it's going to be twice as hard to get rid of them.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them, we were like, oh no, on their 89th day. And I'm sorry, I was to blame, but they were like, get rid of that person. I'm like, that's the way they spoke back then, though.
Oh, yeah.
Being honest, it was just get rid of that person. I'm like, now you have feelings. Now we have feelings, and we
get sued.
We did have them back then, but you just didn't say it. But there again, I got a really good one for you here, guys. All right, Joel, you look. I'm going to give this one to Greg because Greg looks super honest, doesn't he? He's got that. He's got that super. How do you? This one here, honesty. How do you portray honesty during a job interview?
How do you portray honesty?
Well, how could you tell if somebody was being honest with you, or
That's a good question. I think for me, so I have 3 kids. 2 of them are old enough to talk and lie or tell the truth, and I can always tell when they're lying because they look away. Yeah. Like David asked me, like, did you do that to your sister? No. 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 Hey, are you looking me in the eye and are you speaking with conviction? Like, yes, I did that, David. I got it done.
Yeah.
Do I feel like you're being honest? Are you looking away? Are you twitching? Are you scratching your neck? Are you nervous? Are you hesitating? Or are you looking me in the face and are you speaking with so much conviction that I believe? I don't even have to ask you again. Yeah, I got that done for you. Yep. I think it's the way you answer. Just like we talked about this again last time I was on. It's not always what they answer, but it's a lot of times. Personally, I think it's how they answer. How are you answering a question? Again, like with the work ethic, I work hard. Yeah, I work hard. Working hard is important to me. My dad was in the military. He'd have kicked my ass. Oh, okay. Yeah, you work hard. How do you answer? Speaking with conviction, or are you just wasting time?
I love it. Gut instinct is one of the one that came up when there was gut instinct. And I've done that. I think a lot is. Joel, what do you think?
No, I completely agree with what Greg's saying. And sometimes you get them into those, and sometimes it won't hold. I've ran into a few people who don't have the eye contact, and it's usually because they have some kind of medical thing happen, like some autism or something like that. Right. Then you got to have them tell their story. And once they start telling that story, get them to open up more. Yeah. Once they do that, then you can actually understand what's going on with them. And then you can start hearing that story. You can tell if the story's far. Well, at least where we're at, the 3 of us, we can tell if a story's been far-fetched or not far-fetched.
Yeah, because I think that's where I was going with that was an experienced recruiter or anybody in the hiring process that has experience. You've been around. You've been there, done that. if you know the job that you're hiring for and you know what they're going to be doing, sometimes people get carried away on their stories. I'm thinking in my head, oh, that's bull. There's no friggin' way you did that. There is no way you did that. But in my mind, I can't say that. I'll be like, I've done that job. I'm like, I never heard of being able to do this. But your gut, I just think, again, Greg, like you said, it's just the way you say it. You know, like you said about your father kicking your ass, everything that everybody just knows that feeling. You know, and I kind of agree with what you said there.
Oh yeah, absolutely, definitely.
You know, especially when it comes to that, I'd be like, oh my God, you know, trying to make somebody believe. So, all right, the next one. I got my great. I'm actually reading from the pages tonight a little
Woo-hoo!
bit.
We're doing great
All
tonight.
right, we did the strong work. All right, empathy.
Ooh,
Joel, I think you'll do good. I think this was yours. I think empathy. Gear. Oh wait a minute. Rob's got a question here. 2 candidates are neck to neck for only a position. One has no personality, all business-like. The other has great personality and very energetic. Who do you hire? I'm going to let you two take shots at that.
Well, I mean, after neck and neck, and one's straight business-like, but the other one has a great personality, and they're neck and neck, I'll probably go with the one with the personality, you know, who's showing ambition. I want to see ambition. You know, if I'm hiring somebody, I want to hire my replacement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want to hire somebody that's going to be on my floor, learn how everything works. And then, you know, if you got the ambition, let them go for it. Now, if you got somebody in here who, you know, I love Ben Stein to death, but you start going there like Bueller. I'm just like, you know, not really. I'm not going to have you on there. But if they have the skills and the skill sets to go on the floor, and you know, they might be Monto, but they know what they're doing. Yeah, I'll bring them on. I'll hire them on board as well.
Yeah, that's hard.
If
you're neck to neck, you got a good. If you're neck and neck, it's a 50-50, man.
It is.
50% chance next week you're going to be saying, I should have went with Greg. What'd I do this for? You know what I mean? You know, Greg, what do you feel about that? I mean,
I'm going for personality and energy. You know, I can't teach you that. I can teach you all the stuff on your resume. I can teach you how to build your resume, but I can't teach you how to care about the job, have a personality, service customers, do the right thing, have empathy, a good work ethic. The list goes on. I can't teach those things. If you have those things, then you can do anything. You can build a bigger resume than the guy who's dry. And again, I'm just going off exactly what's in the script. Maybe the other guy had some energy, but just based off exactly what he said. If the one guy's kind of dry, but he's got a really impressive resume, I'm like, are you even excited about being here today? Or
no.
You know, what's your goal? Do you have ambition? Do you know what it looks like? If the other person's chomping at the bit, I want to give them a shot and see what they can do. Hey, show me what you can do, man. You know,
it is. I think, and then when you bring all this stuff that we've talked about tonight, it's really, I like how we deep dived into it a little bit more to show these things. So if anybody's watching this and you've gone through an interview process, these are things that will really help you. Empathy, honesty, you know, work ethic, all these kind of things, wording, stories, tell a story. That's my favorite. I tell you two guys love that story, and I get it because it makes you listen. Your communication, you're listening to the person. Joel, I'm not going to let you off the hook on this one for empathy. In the high, I love doing this when Joel doesn't know the questions, or Greg. We put this together really good. You know, it's like, I think if I give you the questions, you're going to know an answer right away. You know what? But empathy, how do you show
topics to me, man?
How do you show empathy?
How do you show empathy? Well, there's many
in the hiring process. So if I'm hiring with you, you know, and we're talking, how does empathy come into it? I think that when
that goes along with the story too, and it also goes with how much risk are you willing to put into hiring this person, because hiring involves a lot of risk into it. But the empathy part is it goes into, I mean, it all comes down to a risk. You know, the person will tell you their story, like, hey, you know, I just got out of prison. You know, I really want to, you know, make a difference now. You know, I you know, what we were talking about earlier, I screwed up, try to make a second chance and everything. And that is pure, in my opinion, if you hire that person on because they're looking for a better chance, a better direction in their life and everything, they want that second chance. That's where that empathy comes into play.
Greg, do you think that's very important?
I think people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And
Ooh, that's I like that.
Oh, I like that one.
Completely,
Say that again. Say it again.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You know, and people care more about being heard and being empathized with than they care about being agreed with. I believe two people could sit down, you know, whether it's politics, religion, football teams, whatever. And as long as you're hearing each other out, like I can see why you believe that. You might leave disagreeing, but you heard why that person's passionate about it. I think hearing the person out and communicating that empathy or feeling that empathy. I don't think you can communicate it. I think pausing when you're speaking. Yeah, David, that makes a lot of sense.
But don't
I
you
can really see why you feel that way?
But don't you feel the interviewer or interviewee, I'm sorry, like let's just say if I was hardcore, I mean, I don't show empathy in the process, right? And you're telling me a story. I think the interview person would feel that energy off of me. Like if I'm just sitting there saying that, yeah, whatever. If I don't show empathy, I think empathy has a lot versus honesty. No, in a way, you're showing that you care because you got to listen to a story or something that's went on in somebody's background. I think you need to show that. You got to have. I know I have it because I'm thinking to myself, I must have a lot of it because I'm always following into the story with them. Like I might have a question about it.
You just said it. You said it. Listening. Like, are you leaning into someone and really looking at them, nodding your head like you're really taking in what they're saying, and you're giving them good feedback and pausing and really letting it soak in instead of just going through the motions like, yeah, that's great. So I'm glad you're.
That's what I mean. You're right there.
You work tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hey, I totally understand, you know, your emotion. You know, I've been through something similar in my personal life. We won't get into that, but I can understand where you're coming from. That makes a lot of sense. You're validating how they feel. You're understanding it. You're being a human. They're only gonna want to work with you all the more if you're being empathetic. You don't have to be mushy, you know, but just being a human, right? Being a human being and having a real interaction with. That's all an interview is. It's an interaction. It's a conversation. Does this feel like a good fit? Or does it feel like it was nice to meet you? Sayonara. I'm going to go get a taco. I don't know. You know, what you feel like.
Joel, do you feel that? Joel, do you feel that's more empathy on both? It should be go on both sides of it, right? I mean, as an interviewer, you want to learn how to talk about it. When we talked about it before, keywords, the keywords that you're looking for. I don't think you really, to me, I'm thinking of keywords that would say empathy. I just think by your body language, by the way you talk. I mean.
Yeah, no, like I say, it's two sides of the coin. You know, the one person has to give, and the interviewer has to give too. It's a give and take for both sides, and you have to be able to, you know, show the empathy. And yeah, you can't be all stoic and like, oh, okay. I mean, you can, but if you understand, like, wow, all right, that's that's a crazy story. I can't believe that.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people
more about that. You know, how did you feel about that? And when I do my interviews, I always, you know, I bring up my own stories to help validate what they were going through as well. But like, yeah, I knew something similar because I did this and out here, or I did something similar to that, you know.
And I think
how you bring up what's that?
Sorry, Joel. Everybody talks about culture, like, well, you know, a good work culture. I'm going to work somewhere that's got a good work atmosphere, a good culture. If you're not relaying empathy or enthusiasm or all the things that
I like enthusiasm
you want. This doesn't feel like a culture I want to work at. You know, you don't have to be mushy and give me a hug, but if you feel like someone who is there and you're being present and if you're empathizing with my story, if I have one, well, everyone's got some kind of story, but that feels like a culture I want to be a part of. Everyone talks about culture and atmosphere. Well, that can be felt on both sides. Again, it's a mutual conversation. That can be felt on both sides just in the interview process.
Yep.
You know, I worked for somewhere a few years ago when I was still working a day job, and I went there. And I went in, there was like a receptionist on the one side of the door. She greeted me. It was like, hey, good morning. How are you? She's like, what's your name? Are you here to see someone or how can I help you? You know, trying to figure out if I needed a sales guy or a manager.
Right.
I said, oh, I'm so-and-so. She's like, oh, you're here for your, you know, whatever time it was interview. I was like, yeah. She's like, why don't you have a seat over here? Do you want a cup of water? I'm like, man, and, you know, She showed me where to sit and wait for the guy to come out and interview me. And another person that worked there walked by and offered me a cup of water. Another one came over and asked like how I was doing, what I was doing there. I was like, holy crap, I didn't even get to the interview yet. And this place just embraced me with professionalism, warmth.
I love it.
I was like, wow, like the first 3 minutes I was there told me everything I needed to know about the company. I'm like, this is a place I want to be.
Yeah.
And I still have, obviously I don't work there anymore, but I still have great things to say about them. It's a great atmosphere, great company, great leadership. They're phenomenal.
I think you know what it is. I'm showing it right now. Cause like if I was interviewing, you were saying that, I'd be like, I know that feeling. Cause I'm like, oh my God, the person at that front, that's your first person. And if they're in a bad mood,
it's first impressions. You get the first impressions. You not only being the interviewee, you got to put that first impression, dress nice and everything, and present yourself. But the company has to present themselves to you too. The company has to show what they're providing to you. You don't want to work at some company where it's just like beating a dead horse all the time. Everybody's all dreary.
I know, right?
You don't.
That brings us in. Oh, good.
In the grocery industry, we always said don't ever say just a bagger. We never said just a bagger because the bagger was the last touch or the last point of contact with a customer. So they could have had a great experience where people engaged with them through the store, showed them where stuff was, reached up to get the old lady the boxes are on the top shelf. I don't even work in stores anymore. People get me every time I'm in a store. I'm not even that tall. But whatever it is, they could have had a great experience all the way through the store, and then they get Patrice, who's having a bad day, bagging your groceries real hard, real mean, and you're like, man, I am going to do that survey on the receipt to try to win $200, and I'm going to tell them because they suck because Patrice was a bitch. Of course, like, what do you think's going to happen? So we always said, don't ever say just a bagger, because that person is important. They're on the front lines. They're the last point of contact, and they can make or break the experience that the customer had.
Joel, did you notice Greg's body language on this? You can tell, man. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to make a T-shirt. Don't call me a bagger, just a bagger.
Not just a bagger.
Because I hate the word in the staffing industry. I've been in temporary work for a long time, staffing, and I hate when people say, "Oh, they're just a temp," or because when they use that word, I'm always just like, "Wait a minute, you're not a temp. We're your employer, okay?" The full-time people may be saying you're just a temp. I'm like, you just tell them, well, you're just a Home Depot worker. You're just I have
just a manager.
There's a lot of great staffing companies that I love to work for because I know which ones. I know which ones treat you very well. I know which ones, when you, like you say, you stay away. My point there is they're your employer. Like, I've had some people on the resumes, and some people look differently. You got to be careful, because if you're looking at somebody's job history, it looks like they're job hopping. Some of them don't. If you listen to them, they're going to tell you, well, that was a staffing agency. So then you say, oh, so you've worked for, say, staff work. Look at, you've been for like 3 years. Yeah, that's steady work. Some people like short-term assignments.
Yep. Yeah, they like going from place to place and check out new things. And there's
like you're just a temp. Ugh, I hate that word. I like associate. You're an associate.
Right. Everyone's an associate.
Yep.
So my body language on that one, Joel. I was like Greg down there. I'm just a bagger, and I'm like, Jesus. But it just tells you, because how they feel. Like, we're going to go into the last subject here, and that was about company culture. And we talked about it before, but I want to go a little bit deeper into it. Is how do you show company culture? When you said, Greg, that's great. You walk in and everything like that. That's part of it too, because you make your decision. You'd be like, whoa, look at these people, man. They don't look happy. How do you show it? So you want to tag that one, Joel?
Yeah. Well, Greg hit it right. He hit the nail on the head with that. First 3 minutes in, the person comes out, greets them. You want water? Hey, you're here for this interview, or who are you here? Oh, I'm here to meet this person. Oh, okay, cool. Very knowledgeable. They're very, they're understanding. They're very polite. They bring you in. That is one part of the company culture. The other part is when you're in the interview, asking, how's the interview process going? Do they seem organized? Is the interviewer running late? Do they come in and complain about something, or they apologize? Like, I've done it before. I was like, hey, I apologize. I had this happening. And, we just having one of those days. We can't do it. Or, hey, sorry, I'm late. It's one of those days on the floor. It doesn't normally happen like this, but it's how the interviewer directs that towards the interviewee.
That first couple hours, that's what it's about too.
Yeah. And how long is that person waiting for? How long is that person waiting without somebody else? If that person's been waiting for over 10 minutes and nobody comes to see them, it's like, hey, Joel will be with you in just a second, man. Like, hey, we're sorry. Joel's in a meeting right now. Something came up. We apologize. Or do they just let him sit there in the conference room or wherever they're doing an interview for, 30 minutes and nobody's saying anything to them? What's going on? That will help direct how the company culture is.
I had the interviewer today ask me to interview when I was interviewing him. He's like, hey, how was your day, Dave? How's your day going? I'm like thinking to myself, ooh, I should have asked that question first.
That's what I always ask people wherever I go. How's your day going?
Yeah.
Good. How are you? Oh, I'm here. How are you? I always say, how's your day going?
It kind of broke the ice, because I usually ask that.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking 2 times that happened to me today. So I'm like, all right, Dave, am I missing something here? Why aren't I saying when I sit down, hey, how's it going? Because I don't think you have to go right into it right away. I don't think you have to just hop right into that first interview question. You take your time, because that's a real important to people. And have some fun. Have some fun with it. I don't think there's nothing wrong about making a mistake, or, oh, I'm sorry, and I said this was wrong. It's supposed to be this, or, I just think being honest and open, right, Greg? I mean,
yeah, I have two things for that. So like number one.
Oh, I like that too. You see it?
Yeah,
Don't call me a bagger. Don't call me a bagger.
I'm just a bagger. I'm not just
a bagger. I love that. I love it.
Two things that came to mind as Joel was talking about that, and one's a little bit off, but when I was a store manager in corporate America, one of the things we were taught to look at was your whole building. Is it neat? Is there cigarette butts lined in the cracks of the sidewalk, or the carts out in the corral, or the trash cans overflowing? You're communicating if you have a neat, tidy culture, atmosphere, whatever you want to say, before you even enter the building. What's your home look like? What's your spot, your building, your place that you take ownership over 8, 10 hours, 12 hours a day? What does it look like? How do the people treat you when you go in? Are they offering you a cup of water? Are they asking if they can help you find anything? Are their shirts tucked in? Are their shoes tied? Are they smiling? Do they look like they haven't cut their hair in 8 months or shaved their face? Like, what is it? You can get a feeling of like, these people care about what they're doing 30 seconds in. I can walk into any grocery store or most other store. I can tell right away if the people give a crap about what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Do they greet me? And when me and Sarah go out, my better half that you guys saw earlier,
that's so funny.
When we go out and we're out and about, we're mingling with people, and we're always kind of keeping our ear open and recruiting, right? We're always looking for good people. We're always have our ears open. And we'll walk through like a Tanger outlet or a shopping center, and I'll walk in. I'll be like, I'll see who I can find today. I'll walk in stores, and if there's 2, 3, 4 people working there and no one greets me in like 2 minutes, I just walk out. I'm like, I don't care what their resume looked like. Nobody greeted me. If they go, hey, how you doing today? I'll be with you in just a second. It's like when you walk up to a deli in a grocery store. Hey, I'll be with you in 1 second. You acknowledge.
Chick-fil-A's taught that a lot, aren't they? Chick-fil-A,
right, yeah.
That's drilled into them, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll wait for 10 minutes now. You acknowledged me. I'm a human. You know I'm here. I'm important to you. It changes everything, just acknowledging someone. But the second thing I was going to say, another book recommendation, and this book's phenomenal. It's long. If you listen to it, it's like 8, 9 hours long, but it's phenomenal. It can apply to any industry in the world. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara.
Right.
Absolutely phenomenal book. And just one of the things that they do in there, it's really all about service to others. You're serving others and servant leadership. And one of the things that they talk about doing in this restaurant was whenever a guest would come in, they'd say, hey, Mr. Wilson, how'd you get here today? Oh, I drove. Oh, yeah. Where'd you park? Oh, I parked right over there. I got the gray BMW over there next to the stop sign, whatever it is.
Right.
So they would go.
The old Tesla.
Yeah, or the Tesla. The Elon Musk.
Yeah,
one
Elon
of the
Musk
things
up in the right-hand corner.
Yeah, that'll be your next one. It won't be leadership mentor, Elon Musk mentor. But so what they would do is they would find out where they parked, and he said the first couple minutes when you're waiting for them to come take your order, and the last couple minutes when you're waiting for the check, again, just a bagger, those 2 segments of time can make or break your whole experience because they're short time frames, but they feel like forever. When you're like, I just want the check, I want to get out of here, or are they ever going to come take my order? They're short time frames, really make or break your experience. How long are we waiting? How are they treating me? Well, one thing that they did, they'd find out, in the beginning when they walk in, hey, how'd you get here today? Oh, where did you park? So at the end, before they bring them the check, they'd come over and lean over their shoulders. Hey, Mr. Wilson, I put another quarter in the I can't think, the parking meter for you. You got an extra half hour. Oh, okay, great. Now you're not rushing to get out of there. Heck, a lot of times they bought dessert. I mean, that 10 or 25 cent gesture made them spend money, made them more relaxed. It cost you a couple cents, but they're like, wow, this person cared enough to know where I parked. They ran over and put more time on my meter. Like going overboard to provide a high level of service and hospitality for your guests goes a long way. And if that doesn't communicate culture, good atmosphere, I don't know what does. I mean, that would go miles for me. And that was just one of many, many, many examples. The book will blow your mind. Unreasonable Hospitality. Listen to it, read it. Whatever industry you're in, it'll make you provide a higher level of service for your clients. It's phenomenal.
I had when I was a branch manager at the one place for the staffing, they would always wonder why I would sit out where everybody else sits when they first come in, in the foyer out there with the chairs. I would just sit there. And I'm like, what do you sit there for? I said, because I always used to say, would I want my wife to come here and apply for a job? Because they're like, what do you mean? So I look and you could see pictures crooked. You could see desks that look really a mess. You could just see garbage, everything. And that person is just sitting there and they're zooming it up, looking at the ceiling tiles, how dirty they are, if they're clean, that has a lot. That little picture right there, I noticed before the show is crooked. And I'm like, so I've been trying to adjust it. And as I'm talking, but that's just me because
I do that too. I'm like, oh,
yeah. But that one there, it's bugging the hell out of me as I'm talking. I'm like, that thing's crooked. I'm going to fix that. But my point there is you're absorbing. And I like that we brought this up kind of like with the culture. That culture can be defined within the first hour or two. Right there. You'd be like, oh my God, look at this place. Look at that. The phones are ringing. And they're the kind of things that I think really come to it. Joel's shaking. So, Joel, what do you got on that, Joel?
I was reading Rob's comment that he has over here. He put a new comment on there.
Oh, let's see. Okay, Rob, sorry about that. I didn't see it. Is possible these days you have the interview and be hired the same day? Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've done that.
Whoa, I was about ready to say. Yeah, in the certain roles, I think you can't wait as long as you did. It comes down to that interview. Like, were they honest? Could you tell?
Honestly, I think it comes back to our mentality now. Our mentality is we want something right. We act like everything's Burger King. We want it our way right away. And to go into right away, it's, hey, do I have the job? I need to know if I have this job today. Do I have it tomorrow? You want to know something. You want to know immediately. It's that immediate gratification, which isn't bad, particularly when it comes to a job. Yeah, it's completely possible to hire somebody on the same day.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it just depends on the company. I mean, if the company wants you to come out and fill that position, I've taken a shot and been like, okay, I think, Greg, when you said you've made that decision already, kind of. That decision.
I bring them right away. I bring mine
like,
right
yes,
away.
On that part. But all right, guys. Whoa, almost 54 minutes. Not bad,
good, man. You're doing good.
Yeah, and like I will end here. I want you to have your ending points here, but leadership. I told you about this show when we do this show. Leadership always is one of the top insights when I do this show, and the subject of leadership, not bad bosses, leadership. And I asked you before. I said, "What do you think? Why is leadership and gearing it toward the interview process and all that? Why is it important, Joel? Why do you think it's important to people?"
What, to have the leadership?
Yeah, the leadership.
Yeah, you have to have that leadership. With leadership, it has everything that's what's being broadcast down below: honesty, empathy. You know how to have that line drawn as well. When to, you know what you're going to handle, what you can't handle. You need to know thyself and seek improvement. Are you saying that yourself is perfect? If you think that you're perfect, then you're definitely not, and you need to keep evolving yourself.
Yeah, keep evolving. Greg, on a note here, if you want to just, what do you give job seekers, people going through an interview process and everything we talked about tonight? What kind of advice do you give somebody?
Read or listen to as many audiobooks as you can and go on a self-development journey, because you are everywhere you go. So work on yourself more than trying to change everybody around you. If you're job hopping because it's somebody else's fault, look, you're the common denominator everywhere that you go, right? Do as much self-developing as you can. Your mindset dictates everything. If someone pulls out in front of you, you decide whether you give them the finger or let it go. If your nose itches, you decide to scratch your nose. Your mind does everything for you, right? But it's the last thing people want to work on because it's mushy-gushy. Well, I'm telling you what, the people who self-develop the most,
I like that, self-develop,
make the most money, are the happiest, or the most successful. The list goes on, right? So I say listen to and read as many great books as possible. I wish I would have started doing that earlier in life.
Yeah.
I really wish I would have. So work on yourself as much as you possibly can. If you're bringing yourself to a new level, wherever you go, you're going to be successful.
That's
right.
Others will follow.
Right. It doesn't matter if you go to Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, or Wall Street. If you've brought yourself to a high level of value and self-worth and integrity, and the list goes on, you're going to be successful wherever you go.
Love it. Joel, your closing argument here?
No, there's no argument. I fully agree. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
The more you self-develop yourself, the more people are going to follow you. To caveat what Greg said, if you're seeking yourself into a leadership position, develop yourself. The more you develop yourself, people are going to follow you. If you don't develop yourself, if you don't self-improve yourself, no one's going to follow you. If you're not going to follow yourself, no one else is going to follow you.
You got to hold yourself to the standard that you expect from others.
Exactly.
I like that. Self-help, self-healing, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to call it. build up on yourself. I like that because the stuff that we talked about tonight.
Greg. Boom.
What's that? Yeah, right. I like the stuff that we talked about. Honesty, empathy, leadership. Work ethic, and we talked about that, putting it all into the interview process. That's what I liked about tonight's show, is just gearing it all towards the interview process and how all those steps, it brings you to that point. And I think it comes down to, I like the idea of improving yourself, learning. You got to learn. You got to, just like I do. I've been listening to podcasts on the way to work. I was like, all right, that gives me 40 minutes every day just to listen to some ideas about leadership. I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't think about that, and they're good ideas. But guys, I want to thank you. Again, this is great. How we get on here and we talk about it. But
can I say one more thing,
yeah,
Dave?
Yeah.
Sorry, I would be doing a disservice if I didn't mention this before we hopped off. There was one book that I didn't mention, and then I'll shut up, I promise. The last book that I recommend to everyone, if you're interested in becoming a leader, becoming a better leader, anything to do with leadership, book called Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute. It's probably my favorite book I've ever listened to in my entire life. And absolutely anyone in the world can benefit from it, no matter how old, young, race, gender, whatever. Leadership and self-deception. Leadership and self-deception. Fantastic book.
That's
ties
awesome.
together everything you just said. That's why I remembered it.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Greg, stay right there this time. You're supposed to stay till the end, and I end it, and then we say
I'm
goodnight.
here. I'm not going anywhere.
Didn't last time he took off, he was like, I said, I don't think we told Greg that we talk for a minute afterwards.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, right. So everybody have a great night, and I'll talk to you guys in 1 minute.
See you guys. Take care.
Take care.